All right, we are at chapter 36. Chapter 36. It's called Jessica. So who do we think is going to be telling this part of the story? Remember, we've had a really good time figuring out who's telling the parts of the story. Only 3 people? No? Or 4 people? Louise, what do you think? Who's going to be telling the story? Do you remember who Jessica is? Can you help him out? There you go. Very good. Perry's mom. And I see some people saying, agree, 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 which is what we should be doing when somebody says something that you wanted to say too, right? You say, oh, yeah. I had that idea in my head. Okay. Very good. So we've had a lot of fun. One of the reasons I chose this story to offer you guys as an option, and then you guys picked it up. But just because it goes back and forth from the perspective of who's telling the story, we have to practice seeing who's going to tell the story. So we think this one kind of makes it easy for us because it tells us, like, Jessica each time, most of the time when Jessica's speaking. So we already have that idea in our head that probably Jessica is going to be the one telling the story. Now we need to think about that as we start reading and say, is Jessica actually telling the story, or is this somebody telling the story about Jessica? Okay. All right. Jessica. Oh no. Jessica Cook shot out of her chair in the Blue River Common as if she had a rocket strapped to her back. How dare he reference my kid on air like that? She stood pointing at the TV, her arm straight as a stick. He's pointing up at the TV. How dare he reference my kid on TV like that? She listened to the whole Thomas Van Leer segment go further and further south. And when it finally was over, she said, "Ugh, that was excruciating." He's like painful, miserable. If there was any doubt before, he's proved it now. He's a horse's patootie, Big Ed said. Sure is, several residents of the Blue River chimed in. You should put a day-old sock in it, said Callie DeCoco. In fact, I'd like to do it for him. Yeah, but because he shouldn't have done that, Shoshona added her 2 cents, all while channeling her inner Desiree Riggs. Did you all hear him? You know what he called it? It's called, you know what that's called? It's called uncouth, which is kind of like not really, that's not cool, that's not okay, like that's not right. And what's with Desiree? Jessica whisked her hand in the air. What was she doing, perpetuating the conversation like that? The boy from the Blue River Co-ed Correctional Facility, Jessica mocked. I don't know, Hazy Barrow said. I thought she was sticking it to DA Van Leer, and I liked that part. He flashed a grin, grabbed a cafeteria tray, and twirled it over his head in one finger, while Jessica considered that he just might be right. Desiree was letting people know that Van Leer is done wrong by Perry. I'd say score 1 for Desiree. He pumped out the tray in front of his chest a few times, kind of. Yeah, Desiree. And got the residents cheering, Desiree, Desiree. A smile loosened at the corners of Jessica's mouth. When the noise died down at Foreman Joe's insistence, Jessica said, is Van Leer's concern for Perry real, or will he just do anything to raise his public profile? Is he using my kid to make himself look good? The thought made her blood boil. If that's what he's after, I'd say it backfired, Big Ed said. Jessica thought out loud. If he's truly passionate, but also, is he truly passionate, but also super prone to putting his foot in his mouth? I seriously cannot tell. Putting your foot in your mouth is a saying for saying something that that kind of doesn't make you look very good, kind of makes you not come off the way that you want to come off. Like, so in this case, Thomas Van Leer was saying things about Perry that made him seem like maybe he wasn't doing it for the right reasons, that he was just keeping Perry to try to make himself look good, not necessarily for the boy's best interest. I can't answer you that, Jessica, said Housley. Or I can't answer you that, Jessie, said Housley. Jessie, he'd been calling her that now and then, and she liked it. He passed her a tray and invited her to slip in the supper light ahead of him. In the Blue River kitchen, Aggie Mon tilted back his head, about to crow a poem. Jessica listened. She likes to share the rhymes with Perry. I wish I had some honey to drizzle on this pork. Could make the meat taste funny, but it would glue it to the spork. She managed to give the Blue River poet a nod and a grin. But really, he only had part of her attention. Down the supper line to her left, she could hear Shoshona being Desiree Riggs. The utterly unpleasant Harvey Krensky was reaching across her and 3 other residents to bang his knuckle on the steam table, a tippanani like assault on her ears. Okay, like, which means that like it was just really annoying. Like, you know how sometimes you guys make a sound or you hear a sound and it's just like, it drives me crazy. Like, it just bugs my ears right now. Please don't do that. So that's what he's doing. He's knocking on the table and she's going, I do not like that. Not right now. Meanwhile, tall, kind, and handsome Hasley Barrows was close to her on the other side, being, well, tall, kind, and handsome, which was a different kind of unbearable. But most of all, that segment on counting on Butler County was just nagging her. Jessica thought about skipping dinner and going off to air swim a few laps in the halls of Block C Rotary. Breathing and rhythmic arm strokes from her teenage swim days still calmed her. No water required. So when she says air swim, that's what she means. So she's pretending like she's swimming. Right? Like, it's pretending like she's swimming because the breathing like that and doing it helps calm her down, just like it did when she used to be able to really swim. Jessie, you have to eat, Hassie says, as if reading her mind. Yeah. She thumped the back of her dinner tray against her own forehead. She let out a grunt, then put up the tray for Aggie Mon to fill. Cheer up, little chicken, the cook called to her over the serving counter, ladle in hand. I mix my beans with sweet molasses, baked with love to please the masses. Again, Jessica smiled. I just hope Perry didn't see that segment, she said mostly to herself, but then she tipped her head so her ear rested briefly on Hasley's upper arm. Please tell me he didn't. But we all know that he did, right? He watched that. Chapter 37, A Pair of Arguments. Before class on Tuesday morning, Zoe Samuels is in the school office dropping off an updated health form. It's taking forever. From the hallway, I see a blob of blurred kids behind the pebbled glass door. I think I have think time, and what I'm thinking about is driving. So who do we think is telling the story right now? He's at school with Zoe Samuels, so who do we think it is? Perry, right? We're back to Perry telling the story. Okay, so we went back to a brief little chapter where his mom was telling her story, and now we're back to Perry. And it was kind of nice because we got to see, remember that news segment from Perry's point of view and then from his mom's point of view, right? And they're both upset. Although Perry was, has this remarkable way of not getting super, super mad, which we thought was pretty cool. Pretty cool. Okay. Last night, after Zoe's mom abandoned her cooking project, she drove us to the Rising City Grill. We ordered burgers and fries. Shh, please don't be crinkling that real loud next to me. Yeah, I can't speak over it. We ordered burgers and fries and small milkshakes. But then Zoe's mom told the waitress, make them large. We punched a whole bunch of songs into the jukebox at our booth and played a hilarious game of changing the lyrics. No team, no losers. We stayed a long time. Then, instead of heading back to the Van Leer house, we took the rest of our giant milkshakes with us, and Zoe's mom drove way out on Route 92, past the turn for David City. Then at no particular place in the road, she turned around to head back to the Van Leer home. I've heard of people driving in circles, but last night I realized we can't really do that here in our part of Nebraska. We can drive in squares, I guess, but we'd have to choose either very small ones or super big ones. Mostly, it's just long straightaways. Anyway, there was a serious argument in the Van Leer house last night. It started with low voices in the kitchen. Mr. Van Leer asked Zoe's mom, "Do you know what went through my head when I came home and saw this? My whole family gone and no note, no phone message. Robin, I was scared to death." "For that, I am sorry," she told him. "I am." "Was this some sort of stunt?" She said, "Stunt? You want to talk about stunt? Come with me." The fight moved to the Van Leer master bedroom. I don't know a lot about this kind of arguing, the husband and wife kind. At Blue River, there's no getting married. I stood in the Van Leer family room with Zoe, both of us silent, looking left, looking right, shuffling feet. I didn't feel right to stand there, but I wasn't sure where else to be. The new intake. "Okay, guys, please stop singing. You need to be listening." "What do we do?" asked Zoe. She shrugged and rolled her eyes. Homework, reading, or just go to bed. It's almost time anyway." So Zoe went into her room and I went into the one that I stay in. I sat in the closet looking at my timeline. I put an X on the day. Done. Through the closet walls, I could hear bits of the arguing, but all the words were fuzzed. I know that Mrs. Samuels was mad because Mr. Van Leer mentioned me on the television. I found out there is something sad about the way a fight fills up the house. They were fighting about me. I kept thinking about how they are Zoe's family, how much things need to be good for her. All that food from the Rising City Grill lay in my belly and turned into a monstrous heap that didn't feel so great. I wanted the fighting to stop. Hey, Brian Morris is standing in front of me outside the school office. So he was thinking about all that stuff that happened last night, right? And then we realized, oh yeah, he's at the school and that's what he's thinking about during his think time. Brian Morris is standing in front of me outside the school office. I stare back and wonder how he got here. His tall friend looks on. "Saw you on the TV last night with Desiree," he said. His body waggles. "No, you didn't," I say. He fluffs his hair like Desiree might, and I have to wonder, does everybody want to be Desiree? "The boy from the prison," Brian quotes her. "That's you." His friend speaks and points fingers at me. "I wasn't on the show," I said plainly. "Brian," Miss Maya comes out of the crowded hallway. The whites of her eyes gleam. "I just bet that you have somewhere you're supposed to be." She gives him a light touch on the shoulder, spins him towards the stairs. He gives me one more Desiree-type wiggle on his way out. Miss Maya sends his friends along too. She lets out a puff as she watches him go. The two of us step into one of the alcoves. "How's everything, Miss Perry?" Miss Maya asks. And I want to say everything is ridiculous because of Brian Morris. "You know, I love having you in class this year, but boy, I miss our rides to school," she adds. "It seems like a long time ago," I say. I think of the 2 weeks worth of X's on my timeline inside the Van Leer closet. Part of me thinks it should not seem so long, but that's half a month, and a month is long. "Miss Maya," I say, "I was at Blue River on Saturday. I didn't see Warren Doherty." "Yes," Miss Maya waits, then she adds, "My aunt's schedule there has changed." She paused in that more to the story sort of way. I know there's something that she cannot tell me. "Miss Maya, I already know the warden is in trouble. She told me herself. She said it the day they told me I had to leave Blue River, and I know it was because of me." Miss Maya has something on the tip of her tongue, but I can see her choosing to say something else. "Perry, if ever in your life you believe something to be for sure, let it be that my aunt wouldn't change any of the choices she made, especially not when it comes to you." She smiles and pushes back her long braids. It's a sure sign she's going to change the subject. "So I hear you're at the library after school these days." Yeah, I say, I tug the straps of my pack. I've got my Blue River questions folded into my notebook in there. It's been okay. I'd rather go home because, well, I've just always seen my mom right after school. Of course, said Miss Maya. Here comes a wicked wash of homesickness. It's been like this the whole 2 weeks. I'm fine, and then suddenly there's that ache in my face, and I know the corners of my mouth are turning downward. My eyes start to tear. It takes me a few seconds to get rid of that. I look back at Miss Maya, but at least get homework done at the library. I've been working on my Coming to Butler project, I say. Ah, good. She pumps two little fists, as if she likes that a lot. And today, Zoe and I are helping Mrs. Buckmuller. I shrug. Only Zoe knows my plan, and I decide not to mention it to anyone else, not even Miss Maya. Well, they're lucky to have you. Miss Maya looks at the clock. She gives me a sideways hug and says, "You're one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, Perry Cook." All right, we got 2 chapters down today. All right, we did chapter 36 and chapter 37.